Alright guys, today we're going to talk about operations with functions. So all we're really going to deal with is adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing functions. So let's take a look. So the first thing is you'll see these in two ways. You'll either see it as f of x plus g of x or f plus g of x. So it'll be f and then in parentheses x plus g and then in parentheses x, or it'll be f plus g in parentheses and then an x in parentheses. Notice this is not multiplication. It's just saying that f of x plus g of x. Okay, subtraction. So we have f of x minus g of x. Okay, so f parentheses x minus g parentheses x. Or it could also be written as f minus g of x. And that's how we say it. Okay. One thing is when we're doing subtraction problems, make sure that you distribute the negative when we subtract. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so our first one is f of x plus g of x. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I notice that this is addition, and I know that I'm going to have f of x and g of x, and they give us two equations. They say that f of x equals 3x plus 20, and they say that g of x equals 6 minus x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take what my f of x is. I'm going to kind of highlight it in red. We know f of x is 3x plus 20. So I'm going to write 3x plus 20. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead in blue. I know that g of x is 6 minus x. Okay, so I'm going to write 6 minus x right next to that 3x plus 20. Now, in my original problem, it was an adding is the operation that we're using. So I'm just going to put an addition sign in between them. And sometimes I'll put parentheses around whatever my f of x and my g of x is, just so that I can keep them kind of separated for a second. Okay, so I have 3x plus 20 in parentheses plus 6 minus x in parentheses. Now we're just going to do what it tells us to do, which is add. So we're going to combine like terms. I have 3x plus negative x, which is 2x. Then I have 20 plus 6, which is 26. And that is my final answer. Now let's take a look at this one. So this is f minus g of x. So the first thing I always do with these is I just rewrite them, because that first slide told us that we could do this as f of x minus g of x. Okay, these mean the same thing. So now I can say, okay, well, f of x is 3x plus 20. And it's subtraction, so I'm going to put my minus sign. And then my g of x is 6 minus x. So I'm going to go ahead and do 6 minus x in parentheses. So we have 3x plus 20 in parentheses minus 6 minus x in parentheses. Now for subtraction, the biggest thing that people forget to do for subtraction is to give this subtraction sign to both of them. Okay, so we got to distribute that subtraction sign to both. So we're going to have minus 6 and then plus x. Okay, so I have 3x plus 20 minus 6 plus x now. Now we're just going to do what we just did and combine like terms. We're going to have 3x plus 1x is 4x. Then 20 minus 6 is 14. There is our final answer. So we just plug in our f of x, we plug in our g of x, and we do the operation. Now when we evaluate functions, we kind of did this back in our very first unit back in semester 1. But we have two options. One is we can find our expression using the operation and then substitute our value in for x. Or we can just substitute our value in right away and then do the operation. So I'm going to always do option 2, but option 1 does work if you like what we just did, and then you just can plug in your number at the end. So let's take a look. So I have g plus f of 3. So notice how I don't have a x in there anymore, it's a 3. And also be careful, people want to multiply it by 3. It's not multiplication, it's just telling you that we're going to plug in 3 for our x's. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just do, so really I'm going to rewrite this as g of 3 plus f of 3. Oh, f of 3, not x. Okay? And I'm just going to go ahead and do both of these. So I'm going to do g of 3. That tells me that I'm going to plug in a 3 into that x. So I'm going to do 6 minus 3. All right, well, 6 minus 3 is just 3. Okay? Now I'm going to do my f of 3. So f of 3 tells me that I'm going to plug 3 in for x in the 3x plus 20. So I'm going to do 3 times 3 plus 20. So 3 times 3 is 9 plus 20 is 29. Okay? So I got my f of 3, I got g of 3, and now I'm just going to do the operation, which is addition. So I'm going to go ahead and put my addition sign there. So 29 plus 3 is 32. So when we evaluate, we're actually going to have a number as our answer. We won't have x's anymore since we're plugging numbers in for x. Okay, here's my next one. So same thing, I'm going to rewrite this as f of 2 minus g of 2. And now I'm going to plug in what f of 2 is. So I'm going to plug in 2 for that x in 3x plus 20. So 3 times 2 plus 20. Okay. So now that's going to be 6 plus 20, which is 26. Okay. On the other one, we're going to do 6 minus 2 for my g. So g of 2 would be 6 minus 2, well, which is 4. So that means I'm going to have 26, and I'm going to bring that subtraction sign down, minus a positive 4. Well, that's just 22. So that's our final answer. So for multiplying and dividing, it's very similar. We can write it as f of x times g of x, or we can do f times g of x. Same thing with division. We can do f of x divided by g of x, or f divided by g of x. You don't need to worry about the stated restriction values. We would deal with that in this class. So let's go ahead and take a look at some examples. Okay, so let's look at the first one. So it's f of g of x, or sorry, f times g of x. So I'm going to write this as f of x times g of x. So now I'm going to go ahead and rewrite what f of x is. That's 3x plus 20 times 6 minus x, since our g of x is 6 minus x. Now I have to multiply this out, so I'm just going to distribute. So 3x times 6 is 18x. 3x times negative x is negative 3x squared. Okay, now 20 times 6 is 120. And then 20 times negative x is negative 20x. Okay, so we just multiplied it like we normally would. Now I just go ahead and combine like terms. So I have negative 3x squared. I have 18x minus 20x, which is minus 2x, plus 120. And that is our final answer. Okay, so we just multiplied our g times our f. For this division one, division sometimes people get a little freaked out about. It's actually not too bad. I always like to rewrite it as f of x divided by g of x, kind of as a fraction, because that's how I'm going to set it up. I'm going to do my f of x, which is 3x plus 20, over my g of x, which my g of x is just 6 minus x. Okay. Now, I'm almost done. The only thing I have to double check now is to see if I can simplify it. Well, I have a package deal on the top and the bottom, and they don't match. So now I just need to see if I can factor or take a GCF out. Well, 3 doesn't go into both of 3 and 20, so I can't factor anything out. So I can't simplify this anymore. So this is my final answer. That's all you got to do with division. Okay, so let's take a look at another one. So I have 3x plus 20 over, since it's f of x divided by h of x, so 3x plus 20 over my h of x this time is x squared plus 7x plus 12. So they'll give you different f of x's and g of x's and h of x's. You just got to plug them in, and just the same process works each time. Okay, so on top I can't take anything else, so I'm left with 3x plus 20. But I do notice that I can factor out x squared plus 7x plus 12. Okay, what multiplies to 12 but adds up to 7? Well, that's just 4 and 3. So I could write this as x plus 4, x plus 3. But when I do that, I still don't have anything on the top and the bottom that match. So my answer, I could either keep it as this, or write it as the factored out form. Either work because we can't simplify it anymore from there. So now if you notice that I have a number in there instead of an x, so I have f times h of 1. So that means that we're going to plug in 1 for our x value. So anytime we have a number there, that just tells you what you're going to plug in for x. So that means we're going to have 3 times 1 plus 20, okay, for our f. So that's just 3 plus 20 is 23. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for our h function. So our h function is x squared, so I'm going to do 1 squared plus 7 times x, which is 1, plus 12. Okay, so that's 1 plus 7 plus 12, which gives me 20. Okay, so I got 23 for my f, and I got 20 for my h. So now I'm just going to multiply them since it was f times h. Okay, so 20 times 23 is going to give me 460. Okay, and that's my answer. All right, so now my next one, I have g divided by f of 2. So same thing, we're going to do 6 minus x, which is 2, which gives me 4. And then I'm going to do my f of 2, which is going to be 3 times 2 plus 20. Okay, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 20 is 26. So we have 4 over 26. Since it's just division, I'm going to write it as that fraction. Okay, if it helps, we can also write this as g of 2 over f of 2. Okay, so I did g of 2, which was 6 minus 2, which equaled 4. And then I did f of 2, which was 3 times 2 plus 20 equals 26. Now I have this fraction. Since it's just division, I can write it as a fraction. Now I just need to simplify. I can divide both of those by 2. So I have 2 over 13. All right, and that's our answer. All right, so what is the difference between finding f of x, or f plus g of x, and f plus g of 3? What will your look like in each case? So the difference is when we have f plus g of x, we're just plugging in for value x. Okay, so our answer should end up with x's. Now if I do f plus g of 3, we're plugging 3 in for our x value. So we should actually get a number, okay, because we're evaluating for an actual number. So the difference is if when it has a x, we're going to just keep our x's there. When it has a number, we have to plug our number in and actually evaluate it out for a number.